When most people think of an action figure, they usually think of something like this: a character with colorful armor, lights and sounds, and usually someone who's heroic. Now, that doesn't mean all action figures have to follow this formula. I mean, in today's modern go-go world, we have action figures of everything from Spider-Man in black and white to Spider-Man playing a guitar to, cryptoids and other mythical Bigfooty creatures. Although, everyone knows Bigfoot's real. So yeah, action figures can come in many shapes, colors, forms, and licenses, but really the key is how children or collectors engage with the product. That's what makes them different from dolls. Dolls and action figures are essentially the same thing, just dolls have nurture play and action figures have aggressive or collecting play. Well, you can collect dolls too. All right, now most action figures come out in assortments, and the idea when you make an assortment is to have a wide variety of what are referred to in the industry as silhouettes. Meaning if you were looking at the figure far away, they would look different, especially in terms of colors as well. I know silhouette's usually purely a black and white concept, but the idea is to make an assortment stand out. So this is done with very careful planning, where whoever ships in the same case or same assortment either complements or diversifies from the other figures. Now, one thing that toy companies have always tried to avoid is a figure that just looks bland on shelf, your guy in suit, if you will. But the thing is, more and more, especially in the adult collecting aspect of the hobby, there are a lot of characters that need suits. I mean, John Wick or, Scarface just would not look right if they were not in a suit, if they were in like colorful spandex. Or, Two-Face villains who wear suits. Not that uncommon. I mean, going even all the way back to, not Orson Welles, H.G. Wells with The Invisible Man. But more and more, we're seeing kind of your general run-of-the-mill dude in a suit hanging at stores now. How in the world did this happen when this was something that toy companies tried to avoid? They wanted colorful characters that were going to catch kids' eyes and jump off the shelf. And honestly, there's nothing more boring than a dude in a suit. Well, I guess maybe that obelisk action figure they made for 2001, but let's get back to our story. So some of the first suit-based figures were the Mego superhero secret identities. Now, the thing is, these were not sold as action figures, characters in suits. Well, actually, all you could buy was, the suit. They were sold as accessory packs, even though there have been modern versions that have paired Mego-esque figures with their sort of like a civilian counterpart. This can tend to create a Mandela effect of false memories. Something like this never shipped in the 70s. The only way to get the secret identities was to mail order them. And what's even crazier than the fact that you would get, clothing and heads in a box that you would attach to your figures was that they took Marvel and DC figures and sold them together in one pack. So, hey, Peter Parker, Clark Kent could actually hang out. Craziness. That would never fly today. So this was really the introduction of suit-based toys, action figures, if you will. And while there's nothing more boring than a guy in a suit, well, sometimes you need that in order to contrast with the guy in the superhero suit. Hence, Clark Kent becoming Superman is very aspirational. Now, our next dude in a suit is also Clark Kent. You're going to see a pattern here. It's interesting to see how this was a character that really helped break through the dude in suit figure. Now, this was also a mail-away figure from the Superpowers Kenner line, but it's important to note that again, it was not a figure sold at retail. The only way to get him was to do a white box mail away with proof of purchase points, similar to the Kenner Star Wars, Boba Fett, and other figures from the 80s. It was Belloc, in ceremonial garb for Indy. All right, so yeah, whatever it was, the mail away figures usually complemented what you had, and no better complement to a Superman toy than a Clark Kent. And it made sense to offer this and at mail, not at retail. The other character that tends to be the one who has really pushed suited characters with ties has been J.J. Jonah Jameson. Did I add an extra J in there? J, 3 of them. Okay, so we've had lots of J. Jonah Jameson figures and or him being part of a diorama. I think my absolute favorite is the one that came out for the very first Spider-Man movie that had desk-pounding action. I mean, I wish I'd been the copywriter on that toy and got to come up with that on the package. It includes desk-pounding action. What kid doesn't want a figure that's going to pound on their desk? Well, it's pretty amazing that JJJ has had quite a lot of figures. I think as a civilian character, almost more than any other. Sometimes they've been kit bashes, sometimes live action, sometimes comic book based. Now, looking at the very first JJJ figure, it was an execution similar to the Mego, where soft goods were placed over an existing body in order to make it into a civilian. Now, this figure was only available in a Monster Mayhem 8-pack that was this Costco, or no, it wasn't BJ's. Might have been Sam's Club. Either way, it was one of those club store exclusives back in the day. And yeah, don't look too close at that JJJ, because if you remove his suit shirt, you'll see that he's got the Mr. Fantastic body underneath. And yeah, the more you take off his soft goods, the sillier he looks. I mean, the suit and the soft goods do make him accurate to the content material, if you will, but it doesn't make him look any less silly. But the thing is, that's how it had to be done, because nobody was going to tool up a suited body. I mean, yeah, I know Kenner did it, but that was really looked at as a waste of tooling, because suited figures sold so poorly. Why not just slap some soft goods? Well, this all changed with yet another Clark Kent figure, this time in the DC Superheroes line from Mattel. Now, this figure came out before I was the brand manager, actually before I was even an employee of Mattel, but I did come on board and brand manage the DCU Classics spinoff. And while this line was heavily designed to share tooling, and especially to use what's called a buck system, I'll link to a video at the end explaining the buck system in more detail, but it's essentially the idea that you have generic body types that can be repainted and have new heads, new armor, new capes, new belts put on in order to maximize the number of figures, so that you're not fully tooling every character every single time. That's why Batman and Superman share the same basic body. And in the DCU Classics line, this was really the key to success, where you could take everything from your skinny guy to your bulky Hulk-like character, which we created for Kilowog, and it could also be Val, or even Archillo from that past shot. So yeah, you'll see we have very generic bodies. Superman and the Flash share the same body, and that is what allowed so many characters to be created over so short amount of time. In fact, you can even see the bigger buck there with Martian Manhunter on the top. And you could demonstrate then for upper management and the licensor how new parts, which are the ones shown in pink here, over the gray buck body, could take a generic body and turn it into a specific licensable character. All right, so there were a few surprises we had in DCU Classics where things worked out better than we could have expected, like the robot body we created for Stell being able to also serve for Stripe, or it might have been the other way around. I can't remember which one came first, but we weren't expecting to be able to reuse that body the way it worked. It worked great for a buck. Another one that was deliberately planned was when we sculpted Gentleman Ghost. He was designed to work for the Joker's body, even having a removable button flower. All right, so back to that Clark Kent figure. So because we had this Clark Kent figure in our tooling bank, it allowed us to create so many characters in DCU Classics that I would have never expected. I mean, I knew there were a couple guys in suits, but it blew me away. The more and more the line went on, the more times this buck was used. In fact, the suit body became one of the most used bodies in the whole line. I would have never guessed that when we set out. So why did this happen? Well, back in the 80s, your superheroes, your heroic characters, your movie guys were all huge buff. Now look at it. They're all guys in suits. No wonder kids are interested in generic, bland characters. All of their superheroes just wear ties and jackets these days. Probably the line that has the most is the new Indiana Jones line from Hasbro, which is sadly ending, but it's almost exclusively guys in suits. I mean, they've got tuxedos and they've got three-piece suits and, they've got, regular ties. But what's really neat is the way they use shared parts by actually having a two-piece head and neck combination that allows things like ties and bow ties to be swapped out, and tooling can be used over many, many suited characters. So yeah, if you've ever wanted the aspiration of having a college professor action figure, this line is for you. It's amazing how far suited figures have come. It's been a long time, and hey, you never know what's going to be around the corner. All right, thanks for watching. It's always great to have you here, and the best way to support this channel is to share these videos with others, and for that, I really appreciate it. Any questions, leave them in the comments below. Always great to get suggestions as well for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.